Welcome to SSO Coaching 76. I am your host, Kathleen DePrizio. This is the podcast where you can find everything about strength, significance, and opportunity. Today, I will be chatting with Dr. Calvin. He is the author of The Happy Leader book that just came out. I shared it on my LinkedIn. You can find it on my LinkedIn feed, and I can reshare it after this podcast. Dr. Calvin is a leader and a speaker with over 41 years of experience. He is currently serving as the CEO of Calvin Lawrence Speaks, where he engages all types of audiences in motivation, diversity, and leadership practices. He is married to his wife, Amanda, for 34 years, and they have a son named Caleb, who is a recent graduate of Abilene Christian U. Congratulations, Caleb. Dr. Lawrence is originally from Virginia, but now he resides in North Texas, not too far from me. And we actually connected on LinkedIn, and he is my big brother. I absolutely love this man to death, and I would like to introduce you to him. Dr. Calvin, how you doing today?
Hey, Kathleen, I am doing, I don't know if there's a word in my vocabulary to describe how fabulous I feel because I'm on screen with my favorite little sister. And I don't say that lightly because you are. And so I'm great.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining me today. I do really appreciate it. And I apologize for the fact that I'm a little nasally today. My allergies are messing up. You know, here in North Texas, we've got everything growing and blowing. So everything is up the nose and I'm all stuffy. so
That's the way it goes. Yeah.
so tell me, how did you get into the let's start in your past. Let's start in Virginia. How did you get from Virginia to Texas? Let's start there.
Okay. Well, at the time I was about 5 years into my career, Kathleen, and I don't know if everybody has this experience, but about 5 years in, it's like, is there more to life than this? Like 5 years into your career, your adult life. I'm like, I think there's more, there should be more. And I was just kind of, so to make a long story short, I was looking to do something different. I applied for different jobs. One was law enforcement, by the way. And I was on my way. And then I have to tell this part because this guy kind of put me back on the right track. I was about into a fourth interview for everybody seen the show, the series NCIS. They've got NCIS New Orleans, NCIS. I don't know if they have a Chicago where
Not yet.
you're from, but not yet. Maybe one day. But uh, I was fourth in the fourth interview in that process, and maybe a couple more interviews, and I would have had the job. But the guy said something to me that was profound, and it was like I had this epiphany, and it just changed me in the direction I was going. And he said, everybody can't do what you do. And he was referring to me teaching and coaching, working with students and working with athletes and working. And when I walked out of the interview, I was still on course for the next level, but I never came back. So the next thing is, so what is there? I got to do something, right? So then I'm looking to try to figure out. And a best friend said, "Why don't you get your master's degree?" And so then it was about where to get it, how to get it, wanted to go back full time, get it all paid for, blah, blah, blah. So Texas Christian University and Fort Worth, Texas, which is right in between you and I, was the more aggressive. They accepted me. They asked me to come down. They showed me all the greatest parts of Fort Worth. I'd never been west of the Mississippi. I loved it. I signed on the dotted line. And I stayed because although this piece in, when you marry a Texan, you don't leave Texas. So after I finished, had one more year, uh, my mentor introduced me to my wife, who now is my wife, and the rest is history.
Interesting, interesting. So
Hmm.
I was speaking of your book, when I brought that up in the beginning, I was actually ready to say I actually have it right here.
You got it.
I
You
don't know if
got
you
it.
can see it.
Yes.
Can you see
I
it? I
can
don't know
see
if you
it. I
can see
can
it or
see it
not.
in and out. Yeah.
The Happy Leader. So I was reading, I can tell you I haven't actually gotten too far into it. I've gotten through the introduction and I was reading Coming Up Tidewater. So you actually grew up, I mean, you were born in 1959, so you're actually a baby boomer.
I'm a baby boomer. I am. On
You're
that
at the
tail
end
end.
of the baby boomers,
I'm on
but
that
you are a
tail end
baby
of those
boomer.
baby boomers. Yes, ma'am. I am. I'm proud to say I am because and that's an interesting group. And that's the group now that's going into the later life phase. There's a bunch of us now that are still around, hanging around. But yeah, yeah.
And I mean to come up, I mean, you actually talked about like segregation. So you actually experienced like segregation back when you were like in elementary school, like because you were in a segregated kindergarten, correct?
Correct. Kathleen, I say this, and it could be offensive to some people, but it's like I had the best of both worlds because I got a little bit of part of the stuff, but I didn't get it all because my parents kind of shielded me. I always talk about it like that, but it was like we came through when we were kind of like the test tube babies because nobody knew what integration was going to look like. Here we are, and now we're the ones. Kindergarten is segregated. First grade, we're integrated, and we're being bused, and so all this stuff happened during my time period, but we were the first. So it's kind of like, okay, when I look back now and I reflect, and I'll get into that. It's like it's really neat because there are a lot of great things that happen. All that stuff that happened that you see on TV, I was a part of it. Even though I was really really little, I was a part of it and came through that period.
That's interesting. I mean, I would
Yeah.
imagine that would actually, I mean, you were young, yes, but you were still old enough to actually experience that. I'm sure that has shaped some views of, and
Yes.
I hate to put it this way, but of what not to do. you
Of
know,
what not to do. You got it. You got it. I love it. I love you saying that because there's a lot of what not to do's in that book. Right. Right.
I mean, it's like whenever I'm interviewing people at my place of business, I tell them straight up, I don't give a crap if you are black, white, pink, purple, or you need to stand on your damn head. I am hiring you for a job, not because of how you look or what you are.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Uh-huh.
hiring you to do a job. Can you do the job? Yes. If you need to do it standing on your head, we will make sure we can accommodate
You
you.
can do it.
And if you
Right.
if you walk in today and you're pink, that's fine. I don't care if you're pink. I mean, it might be a little hard on the eyes, but hey, I'm wearing a pink sweatshirt. It's not that bad. We can deal with it. I
That's
just don't, I guess I'm not one of those people that really cares,
right.
what the heck color you are. It doesn't, if you're, excuse my expression, and I swear a lot. If you're an asshole, it doesn't matter what color you are, you're still an asshole, you know?
It's
If you're a
true.
nice
That's
person, you're still a nice person. But I mean, but you got to experience, I mean, growing up, because I mean, in the 60s, there was still a lot of that in the early 60s where people did not like certain people or did not, and they expressed their opinion. Whereas nowadays, it's not as prevalent, I guess you could, I mean, it
not
was
as
there for a
prevalent,
few minutes, but
not not as institutionalized or legalized or whatever you want to call it, but you're right. I'll give you a quick snippet, and I think it's in the book, but if I didn't put it in there, I should have. When I was
you
about
can put it
five
in
or
your next
six,
one.
I can put it in my next one. 5 or 6, somewhere in that range, and then we're walking and we're going to some places that were in that part of Tidewater. People that maybe will listen to this podcast will say, "Hey, I know because I was there too." There were still the whites only signs and the you know black or Negroes only signs, and so there are vestiges that were still left, even if they were the signs. But sometimes the toughest vestiges are the ones that are in your mind because you got to kind of get through all of that. If you think somebody's inferior or you think you just did a really great job of kind of explaining it, doesn't make a difference what color you are, how you look, or your religious beliefs or your other beliefs. Is what can you do? Can you do the job? You can get the job done. You're good in my book, and I think that's the way I've tried to live my life. But I had some really good mentors that starting with mom and dad that got me to the point where I had to treat everybody the same. And yeah, that's it. That's the way we all should be, I think.
I agree 100%. I mean, I
Mhm.
just, the way I look at life is it's too short and there are too many good people. I mean,
Right.
if I had had a problem with race, you and I would have never connected on
Oh,
LinkedIn.
we would never. And the
And I
funny
wouldn't
thing about
consider
it
you
is
my brother. Come on.
you couldn't have, and it's funny because we clicked like that. I don't know why we
Oh,
clicked
yeah.
so early. Maybe it was the food stuff. I don't know. We're both foodies, but it's like we click like that because of what's internal. And I can
Yes.
sense, and most people of color would tell you this, they can sense when people kind of have a maybe they have they have a wall built up. Because they have a wall built up, it's not seen, but they feel it. And when we click, it's like she's got it. She knows this is the type of girl that you want to hang around. I would prefer to hang around you. There's some people that are African American. I wouldn't want to trust with whatever. But
Yeah.
knowing that the feeling that I have when we first met, and we haven't even met in person yet. Wait till that day comes. That's
Yeah.
gonna be a day. But just knowing you and just knowing the way you treat others it comes out. That's a beautiful thing, Kathleen. And everybody doesn't have that, but when you see it and when you feel it, the vibe is there, and you know it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I can tell you every time I see a message from you on LinkedIn, I just smile because it's a great message. And I look at your interactions with others on LinkedIn, and I can tell you brighten everybody's day that you actually come across. So taking that and segueing into your leadership journey, how did you actually get into like leadership? And I mean, your book, The Happy Leader, how did you get into that side of it? How did you transition that? I mean, you went for your master's and
Yes.
you had your interview to become a cop, and they're like not everybody has what you have, and you can teach and you can learn. But I mean, being a teacher, you can be a teacher. You can be a teacher in a school setting, and then whenever you go home after your 9 to 5 and you don't do anything, but you're
Right.
leader, you are there, and your message transcends that 9 to 5. Your message transcends that limiting, I guess you could say, scope. And so no matter what, you're there, you're a leader. How did you transition that from your master's program?
Okay, so let me you hit. I put down two fingers like this because it was like you hitting me from two sides, and I said, "Oh, I love it," because you got these two questions in this one, and then it almost seems like there's more to it than just the two. But let me try to deal with the two. How did I become a leader? That's a really good question. Somebody just asked me the something similar to that, but not exactly like that the other day, and I want to go into how you asked me. So I had a mentor who he was already at that leadership. Like you said, I was just a teacher, No teacher is just a teacher, but I was a
Yeah.
teacher. And I'm thinking, this is what I'm in my right place. But this guy saw something in me I didn't see. A lot of times that's what happens. Then there was another issue, and we'll go back to the demographic racial piece again, in a good way, in a negative but a good way. What I saw in our North Texas area, and we're talking 1991, 2, 3, in that era. So we're talking over 30 years ago, right? And I was looking around, and what the newspaper had, speaking of newspapers, was they had a demographic of all the leadership uh, districts in the area, in the entire area from Dallas to Fort Worth. And what I saw was there weren't very many people. There were some districts that had zero folks of color, whether they were Hispanic or African American or Asian. They didn't have any. And I thought at the time, as my mentor was trying to push me in, I'm thinking, I can do what that guy does. I probably can do it better. And I've seen other leaders we had at our building. I'm thinking maybe this is the right time for me to step into this next level. The happy leader, I'm gonna jump over to the happy leader piece of it. The happy leader part came about through an evolution of who I became as a leader. And I don't know if I was always happy, maybe definitely not when I first started, but I had to work on that. And then a big part of it was kind of reflecting back on my mom and who she was. And she never met a stranger kind of. And so a lot of her is starting to come out in me now. And so it's about, when I talk about leadership, it's relationships. You just said it in a different way earlier when you said doesn't matter if you're pink, you're green, you're polka dot. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's relationship, right? Because I'm gonna have a relationship with you in a professional standpoint, but it has nothing to do with whether you're this or that. Can you do the job? And then it's also internal. It's like this. I talked about your vibe, and the vibe that you put off is a really great vibe. Anybody who hangs around Kathleen, you cannot not like the girl. And so,
Oh, no, there's a lot of
so
people that don't like me.
well, hey, those some I got to question some of those people because maybe I need to meet them. But anyway, so yeah, it was that in terms of the happy leader, because when I started thinking about what kind of title and somebody saying, and I have a tendency to do this, Kathleen, you know this, so I'll send a message and it'll say happy Friday or happy whatever. I didn't think about it till I started thinking about it. And then it's like, so you're trying to get people to be happy, no matter what, no matter what the situation is, because it's not about the circumstances around you. It's about, do I choose to be happy? Yes, I do. I choose to be. And then on top of that, if I'm happy, then it can be contagious and I can get other people to not look at what's bad about the world, but be hopeful and look at what's good. So that's kind of how that part of it came in, and it came over a period of time. I didn't come to that immediately, or I wasn't gifted with that at the outset. Yeah, if
So
that makes.
no, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And like I said, every time I get a message from you, it just makes me smile. So you are literally the happy leader. So I mean, you're always making me laugh or something. Um, so how did you okay, so let me ask this. So you're a teacher, and
Mm-hmm,
there are some bad teachers in life, and there
mm-hmm,
are some
mm-hmm,
really good teachers. I mean, there's
mm-hmm.
I have two teachers, one from second grade and one from fourth grade. I will never ever forget those women for the rest of my life.
Never, never, ever. We never,
Ever.
ever forget them. Right, right,
And
right.
Mrs. Schubedecker and Mrs. Hope. That's all I have to say. I don't know if either. I know that Mrs.
If they're
Hope
still
died a
alive.
long time ago,
Right,
but I don't know
right,
about
right,
Mrs.
right.
Schubedecker. But I will remember those women for the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah.
So there are some other teachers that I've had. I couldn't tell you what the heck their names were. I
Right.
mean, and I could not tell you. I mean, I went to, like, whenever I got my
Mm-hmm,
my associate's degree, I was actually in night school. So there was only one teacher that actually stood out to me throughout the
mm-hmm,
entire 2 years that I was doing that, and that was Mr. Morrison.
mm-hmm.
He was the only one that made an impression. And then I did
Uh-huh.
my bachelor's course and my master's course online while I was working full time, while
Mm-hmm,
my husband
mm-hmm.
was going to school and working full time with a 5-year-old. So we were very busy. I couldn't tell you what any of the damn teachers' names were. Not one. Not one. Couldn't tell you.
Uh-huh.
Um, I could probably go back through my notes and figure it out, but I couldn't tell you what any of their names were. But I mean, I
Uh-huh.
got the education, I got the degrees. So,
Right.
but how did you transition from just being like an everyday teacher and actually, I mean, what was your inspiration to actually take that teaching to the next level? Because in my opinion, there's teaching and then there's leadership,
Mhm.
and there's leadership at that teaching level that it's like you're that one that everyone remembers. How did
I,
you
I
get there?
I love it that you said it, and I love how you started your conversation with the two people because you can remember them like it was yesterday. And I think a lot of people would say that because there's a lot of teachers that I'll say it like this, that people will have, that they're good at what they do, but they don't stand out. You kind of alluded to that, and I know I have the one in particular that I talk about in the book. I have her name there, like you. I remember the name like yesterday, Dora Harris, and she's the best teacher I ever had. And I've had a lot of teachers in college and you name it, all the levels, but nobody impacted me like she did. Nobody. So I'll go to part of what you asked me to deal with, and that is to take it to another level. Dora took it to another level. I think because of her. Oh, I can tell you, there's a story in the book. Uh, I won the spelling bee because I wanted her name with my name at the top of the list. And let me tell you that I'm not the greatest speller. I'm not the best. I'm not an English major. But in that fourth grade class, and I had to go up against some really tough competition, I was damned and determined to win that contest because I was representing Dora Harris. And I won. Only time I've ever won anything like that. And so that shows some of the impact that she had. She took us on field trips. She did these extra things. She threw dances. She brought her son, who was in the same age, but they lived in a different part of the city. So he went to another school. But she did all these things, and so she made education, I want to say, real. She made it come alive. And a lot of teachers just do the base minimum. I hate to say it that way, but a lot of workers do the base. Whatever you ask me to do, I'll do. And that's it. And I'm out the door. The teacher that has the impact, it's more than that for them. And it shows, and it's like we were talking about with you and me, you feel it. You can't put a finger on it. You might not be able to write what it is, but boy, when you go in her or his or her classroom, you feel it. So in that book, I do a lot about Dora. And I, just like you, I remember the teacher, the worst teacher I ever had, funny enough, came the next year. Now, people would have to know me to trace it back because I don't list her name because there's too many people in Tidewater probably would remember who this person was. Awful teacher. Did less than the base minimum. And that whole year, though, I'm holding on to what the lady before gave to me. And the lady before brought me through that fifth grade year, because if not for her, I don't know what that fifth grade year would have been. But I knew what I needed to do, and I read and I studied and I did stuff based on what Dora did for me. So those two were real close together. Hope I answer some of that.
Yes.
Some of the question. Yeah, but yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me ask, you're extremely passionate. You could just tell
Yes.
by the way you are. You're just a passionate person. How does that transition into your everyday life? Because I know that sometimes passion can be a little extreme and get in the way,
Yes.
and can stress you out, even though it's your passion. So how does that transition into your real life, and how does your wife not want to kill you every
Yeah.
day?
Yeah. No, she would say something maybe a little different, but no. So sometimes that passion can go a little too far, and it has happened, and it happened in workplaces that I've been. I mean, I'm passionate and I'm very loyal, and so if someone's being persecuted, but even if it's kind of like if the kids yeah, I said kids, the people that watch the uh, Marvel comic universe series with all that Avengers stuff and whatnot, it's kind of like Captain America. Captain America he went rogue because he was so devoted to his friend. The passion was there. And but this is Captain America. He's supposed to be always about America, right? But no, not if you're doing his friends wrong, he's devoted to the end. And so it was kind of like that for me. I'm devoted. And even if they were trying to cut somebody out of the pack, it's like, no, I'm going to stand by that person come hell or high water. I'm standing by you. It's, like the song, "Oh, Stand By Your Man." I'm going to stand by my person no matter what. So the passion can get in the way, sometimes in a good way, but sometimes not so always good for me. So, but I have to gear it back sometimes, because sometimes there's too much, and then there's other times when I know I need to ramp it up because I know that somebody needs a spark. Coaching was like that. Working with folks that would just, guys getting down. It's like, no, there's no reason for us to get down. Although this piece in there, I've always used people who have to do it a little bit, have to work at it a little bit harder, because I always thought I had to too, because I didn't think I was that gifted. But I'll talk about special populations, people who have physical impairments or issues or mental problems. And the people who have to work harder have always inspired me. In fact, when I was in college, there was this guy with one leg, but he did all these amazing things, but he only had one leg. He was like a piston. So he was just like, he could get knocked off his feet, but he jumped right back up. He did all these amazing things, and he was an inspiration for me. But people who have to overcome problems that you and I don't even have to overcome. I mean, there's some things that we don't have to overcome, regardless of race or other stuff. They have to overcome maybe that, and then they have something on top of that, and maybe something else in terms of socioeconomics. It's like, wow, if they can do what they do, then what's wrong with me? Why can't I get my passion up or be excited? So even a guy like me has to get charged up, and those are the folks that charge me up the most, because I know if they're hitting it, trying to do something, what's my excuse? I have no excuse. I have none.
Yeah.
No, and no
Yeah.
one else does either.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I mean, there's no excuse whenever I'm, healthy and I've got, all four extremities and they all work. I mean, granted, I got bad knees, but hey, I can still walk. So,
You still can walk.
but,
You still can walk. Right, right, right.
exactly. I may not be able to run, the fight or flight, I'll fight, but hey, I can still throw down. I got both
You're
mouths.
Chicago girl. You're gonna fight.
Exactly.
I won't challenge
So
you.
you made a comment about coaching. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about the coaching, the type of coaching you do.
Okay, so the coaching that I do now is more of a one-on. I like the one-on-one stuff with regards to, if you're looking at leadership, then let me come alongside you and we work together. I've always liked working with people one-on-one. In fact, the first job that I thought the career I thought I was going to go into, Kathleen, was physical therapy, which is basically one-on-one. You're trying to get somebody back to their best. It's a good analogy because if I get with someone, I'm going to try to get them to the whatever next level they are. If they've skipped the level or they've fallen, then let's get them back up to where they need to be. Kind of like a physical therapist. So in a way, I never even thought about that, but I'm kind of fulfilling my original goal now because I want to get people to where they need to be. What is the end road? What do you need to do? Can you be more enthusiastic? How do you work with people? How do you overcome negative, depressed people? How do you go into a new situation and turn the culture around? And in fact, you have to turn the culture around before you can turn all the other stuff around and get to the end game, which is the results, all the other stuff that you want to get at the end, the profit line or whatever. You're going to have to turn some other stuff around before you can get to that. Now, how did we get there and work through all of that stuff? I love doing that. I feel like maybe that is a gift that I have, that I can come in and I go back to the special populations thing. I'm a real, I hope my wife would say this, I'm a real patient guy. I think she would, because she's more impatient in a way than I am. I'm an impatient guy. I can do things with incremental steps. You make just one little iota. Oh, I'll use this as a coaching thing. So like we talk about bad knees and all that other stuff, and I don't know, we've shared that because my knees are not that great. But in the coaching thing, if I'm working with somebody and I know that they have to get to this point, it's just the little things, just the baby steps. Baby steps, probably a good term to use in terms of getting to the next step. Now, a lot of people will give up before they get to the good stuff, but you got to take those baby steps in order to get to the good stuff, the end game. And I'm thinking I'm really good at that in terms of like setting some goals, and you get to a certain point, and then now look at what you've achieved. Look how far you've come. And that to me that's my gratification. That's my bonuses. Is if I were in the corporate world, maybe it would be a financial thing, but in this case, with what I do, it's more of if I can get you to that point, that's a bonus for both of us. That's a win-win all around.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that you and I have in common in that respect. I like when I approach coaching, I approach it like a mentorship. I'm here
Yes.
to build you up, but you have to do the work. See, like I
Right.
don't have the patience in my household. I am not the patient person. I am the impatient person. I have zero patience for stupidity, especially in the corporate world. I'm an operations person, so I'm the type of person that makes the wheel turn. So, and I make
Right.
sure that
Right.
all the cogs and the parts are there to make sure that the wheel turns.
Right.
My husband is the patient one in this scenario, so I try to take a I guess a page out of his book most of the time. I take a breath before I respond. I take that second or two before I actually, go off at the hip and tell somebody that they're stupid. Are you sit there and you write the email and then you delete the whole thing because now you got it out, and then
right.
and now you can send the correct email. So, but that's just, I mean, I guess that's the way I am. But the way I approach coaching and leadership in that respect is you have to show up and do the work. I will be there. I will support you. I will show you where you're missing. I mean, because like I've told you before, I don't know if I told you before. I mean, there's like in my business in transportation, there's four different type of women. There's the ones that keep their head down. Nobody sees them. They just keep their heads down. They do their work, and everybody steps over them because they're not seen. The second type is the woman that wants to become a bitch. She wants to take on that bitch persona. And then she becomes a bitch and nobody wants to deal with her. Why? Because she's a bitch. It's like, you don't want to deal with a bitch. But then you have that third type that's the one that really grosses me out. And that's the one that tries to sleep her way to the top. And it's like, ew, no. You don't shit where you eat, it's like so gross. And then there's the fourth type that takes the reins and basically learns everything that they can in order to actually get ahead and does what they need to do. They do that lifelong learning, and they make sure that they know what the heck that they're talking about when they're at the table. I was the first type of person in my business. I was the one that kept their head down.
Wow.
People were stepping over me, and it took some shitty ass comment by some guy that I couldn't stand in my business to basically point out the fact that I needed to stop doing that, I guess you could say. And what it did is it created my burn. And that's what I call it, is in my burn, because it lit a fire in me and it pissed me off. And it was like, you know what? I'm going to show you exactly what the hell a woman can do in this business, asshole, that type of thing. And that's what it did. But it took that trigger to actually create the next step and push me out of my comfort zone. What was your trigger to make you just like, this is my lifelong calling? This is really truly what I need to do. What was that trigger for you?
Right. So one of them I already alluded to earlier was when the guy said what he said about everybody can't do what you do. First one hit me like a ton of bricks. But then there've been other times when I thought I was going to get out or not do and whatnot. And then I thought, the trigger in one case was seeing those numbers and seeing that there needed to be somebody who looked like me, because some kids needed to see somebody like me in the role that I was playing. It had to force me out of my comfort zone, but I needed to be there because I could be there. I could be that person. Maybe not the greatest, but I could be that person. That was another one. And then later on, it was really more about service to people, because I thought, again, I could make more money going out here doing maybe what my wife does, be a sales rep, do something else, do corporate America. I still had time to make the change. And then I thought, but again, the whole thing came back in terms of, but there's some service that needs to happen here, and everybody can't do what I do. Everybody can't do it. And it's kind of, in a way, part of it is kind of like what you said. I'm going to also show you that somebody like me can do the job, and I'm going to get it done, and I can get it done better than some other people. And so that's always been a thing too. I think I'll take it all the way back to when I was an athlete and I played, college football, and I played football and wrestled and ran track in high school. And a lot of times when I wasn't a talker back then, maybe like I am now, but what would light a fire under me, or you said light a fire, you got your light bulb turned on. And what would light me up would be when people said you couldn't do it. And then I would go, the heck with that, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so whether it was in any of those fields, and even when I got to the next level, I thought, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'll be there. I'm going to start, number one, because you don't have two guys that are better than me. I'm going to start. And those were things that challenged me. I had a teacher in college who was horrible. Another one of those horrible people, not as bad as that fifth grade lady, but this one was horrible too. And she said, "Well, I don't like athletes, and I don't like, you all are too coddled and whatnot." So I was going to prove it to her that athletes can have some intelligence too, and I can write well. And somebody in high school taught me how to write, so I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you I can write. So I've had a few of those times, maybe more than I want to even maybe more than I want to even share. But I've had a few that will make me, I've got to get up off of what I'm doing because I need to. Because yeah.
So let me ask your opinion. And I know how it is for me. It's not only the factor of I'm going to prove you wrong, but I'm going to prove it to myself that I can do it as well.
Okay.
So I mean, I just think that we're not just proving it to others. We're not just proving them wrong, but we're also proving it to ourselves and making sure that we know we can do this.
Oh, you're right, because there have been times when I didn't really believe, but I needed to believe that I could do it, and to push myself to those limits and say that I could do it. The book is an interesting one. I can use that one to deal with this particular issue, because I would think that a lot of people who knew me or know me would say there's no way in hell that this guy could write a book. He's short on words, or short in terms of his verbiage when he writes and whatnot. And I am that. I'm all of that, an article or whatnot. But it's like, okay, but this has got to get done. And if I don't tell a story, it won't get told. It's going to get told this way. And then this is going to push me over the edge. And it's like, the last part of that would be, if I don't tell a story, then these beautiful stories, of course, don't get told. And some of these people who we're talking about, who are no longer with us, they need to get their flowers. And this is one way for them to get their flowers. If I tell a story, it's like, oh, I want to learn about that one, or I want to try to be like that person. I can do it too. So you're right. I didn't always believe in a lot of things. And then then I get to the point and it's like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm actually doing it. And it's kind of shocking. Even now that I feel like when somebody says you're an author, and I'm like, you talk about me, but I guess I am. So yeah.
Yes, you are. You are an author. That's awesome. I mean, the inspiration is there 100%, but there's times when it falters and you don't see it. Like in my business, the position that I'm currently in, I am the second female in the history of the business to ever hold this position. And I'm the only one doing it. So I had no clue. It never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that I was the only female at the table. And it took a colleague in the business to point it out.
To tell you, right.
And I was like, what? I'm like, no, I'm not. So I'm like, flipping through the mental Filodex or, Rolodex. And I'm like, holy crap, I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it never occurred to me prior to that, because whenever I go to the table, I go with knowledge.
Right.
It doesn't matter that, that I don't have dangly bits, I just go to the table because it's all about business.
Yeah. You weren't one of those other three, and definitely not the two in the middle that you described. You went because you knew you're going to be, and I'm going to have the goods when I get there. And that's what you do. And so you focus on that. You didn't focus on anything else. You didn't even think about it, which was probably to your benefit, because if you rely on something else, then you rely on something else. But you rely on, I'm just going to be good. And that speaks for itself. Yeah.
So nice. I liked talking about your book. Let's talk about it just a little bit more. Okay. So what actually inspired you to write a book to begin with? I mean, I can tell you, I have started books and I have ended books, and I have written half books, and I have said, oh God, I can't put that in there.
What?
Those people are still alive. They might sue me. It's like, names and faces are changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah, to protect the innocent. Yeah. I had some of those conundrums too, because I'm thinking, what do I want to, but again, you go back to happy leaders. So I got to keep it on the happy side, right? Because even though I point out some things that weren't quite right and some inequalities and some things that we got to change, the push is let's work toward change. Let's work toward making the changes. But what got me going, and I wasn't even as good as you, because this is the first one I've ever attempted. I thought about something maybe years ago, but then that thought just left me real quick because I wasn't thinking I wanted to put in the work. But it was like, okay, now is a really good time. I have 41 plus years of stuff that has happened, and even some before that, because I talked about my childhood. So that's in addition to, but even in my professional career, there are things that have happened that I've learned from, that I've gained this knowledge from, that I've had all these great people. So it's time. It's like now it's just a matter of how much time is it going to take me. And you haven't asked the question, but I'll tell you. So it was a 4-year kind of an ordeal. And 1 year, the second year, I basically dropped out. It's like I got it, like you were saying about those other books. I got it, and then I don't know if I had even a chapter and a half written or some increments of it. And then I decided, can't do it. Yeah, forget it. Then my mom passed away, and she was the last one. My dad passed away in 95, and she's only been gone now a couple of years. And I thought, if I don't tell it, then the story won't get told. So it's got that impetus for me to get back on it and to tell a story. So I had to do it. And somebody asked me, is this a bucket list thing for you? No, my thing is food. My thing is travel, that. And so I got a lot of bucket lists that go that way. I didn't have a bucket. This was not a bucket list. Now, I guess I can put it and say, I can check it off because I did it. But to be honest, it wasn't something that I thought, this is something that I have to do. It's a lifelong dream. It was not. But now that I have it done, and hopefully it won't be the last one, I'll be able to say and do some things based upon what I'm able to share. And if nothing else, the most important thing is if it impacts one, like we always say, then it was worth all the pain and suffering and stuff that I had to go through to get it done. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell for me.
So it was never even on your radar to even write a book.
No, it was not on my radar. It wasn't a long-term thing. I didn't think about this 20 years ago. I didn't think about this even 10 years ago. But a little while ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided, this is what I'm going to do. Oh, I'll tell you this. So I'm listening to all these people. This may give you a little bit of encouragement. And they're talking about how they should write a book. I have a friend who has 3 books really that he needs to write because he was with me in a place and he has a lot of funky stories about that place. Then he went somewhere else. Then when he was in college, he had a bunch of junk happen. And I said, you got to write that book. All 3 of those books are books. I said, I'll write a foreword. You might not want me to write a foreword for all 3 of them, but I'll write one for any of those ones. But I hope that because I finished and he saw and we've talked about it, maybe it'll give him an idea to at least start one. It's kind of like you have to at least start. It's momentum and overcoming inertia. Because if you don't ever start, you don't ever get to the end.
You're never going to get to the finish line if you don't start.
You never get to the finish line, right? You got to at least start, right?
Yeah,
right.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, I think it's inspiring, and I think it's actually would be inspiring for a lot of people to know, I mean, that this wasn't like your bucket list. You weren't dreaming about writing a book for 20 years. It was just like all of a sudden one day I was like, I think I need to write this down. And then it became the book. But I mean, and like anything that's actually worth a damn in life, it took you some work. And you had a lot of fits and you had a lot of starts and stops and that type of thing. And it wasn't an easy road, but you did it and you accomplished it.
Right. Yeah. I wrote down when you said what you said about you're this type of leader, but you come alongside people, you mentor, but the person has to do the work. Well, you got to do the work. The book is about, and I had people who helped me. I have an editor. I had a graphic illustrator who's fabulous, by the way. And but I had to do the work. It wasn't like I could just turn it over to them and say, okay, now put something together and put my name on the top and I'll be good. Didn't work out. Doesn't work that way. You gotta get in there and dig in and get it done. And there's some tough times, some ugly spells, but the finished product, when you get it done and in, it's worth it. It's worth all the pain.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
Finished product is worth the pain.
Finished product.
Regardless of whether it's your book or if it's you getting another career or you taking a step to help yourself, no matter what, it may be painful.
Maybe painful, but it's worth it. Because you mentioned before about, going through getting your degree, getting your diploma, you got to get certified for whatever. You got to do it. That's the message. If I'm talking to young audiences, it's like, you got to do it. You got to go through it. You can get help while you go through it, but you got to do the work. But once you get through, the pain is worth the pain. You get through it, you get it done. You got your diploma, you got your certification, you got this next level that I can move to the next whatever it is for my life. Yeah.
So I like romance novels. I'm like one of those mystical, magical romance novel girls. So one of the authors that I really like, there was a line in one of her books that has always stuck with me. Nothing in life that comes for free will hold its value.
Okay. All right.
And
wow.
And like the whole scene in the book was about the chick was like offering this other lady, basically like she was offering her a place to stay, but she was telling her she's going to have to pay rent because nothing in life that comes for free holds its value. In other words, you won't respect it or you won't appreciate it if you do not have to actually pay for it in some way or another, whether it be through trial and tribulations, whether it be through actually physically paying for it, or whether it be knocking you on your ass and you standing back up and saying, I just did that. Because it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get the hell back up.
Right.
But with that being said, like I said, nothing in life that comes for free will hold its value. That Happy Leader book that you wrote, it was hard. There were times where you wanted to quit, but there was something that kept pushing you to say, no, I needed to go back to it. And you worked your ass off to do it. And look, now you're an actual author.
Yes. I am. Thank you for that.
Well, is there any questions you have for me or anything like that? I mean, I think we've had a really good conversation, a little longer than my normal chat, but that's good. I mean, when you have a good conversation, it's good.
We're going to have a good conversation. I knew it was going to be good because of course, you're in the room, and I'm going to enjoy just having you on screen. But the only thing I don't know, what's up for you? What's the next thing? How far do you want to take this podcast? Who are you trying to reach? I'm kind of curious because I know you got some really great things in store. A lot more life to live, Kathleen. A lot more foods to eat. A lot more places to travel to. So I know, we got to have something on your kind of calendar to see what. But I want to get an idea from you and to give the audience, an idea too.
Well, I'm taking my coaching to the next level, and the podcast is going to be coming with it. I had to step back for a little while from both of the podcasts because I've got two. You know that. I've got the Shoreside Operational, and then, of course, here, SSO Coaching. But I'm getting back into the groove of things. I'm putting together my school app. I'm actually starting a school site that will actually offer classes and teachings and stuff like that to offer, like, on a monthly basis, and all you'd have to do is a monthly subscription and that type of thing. But I'm taking my coaching to the next level with that. The podcast, I think I'm going to eventually monetize, but I need to do a lot more work and a lot more revamping in that respect. I've stepped up my game on LinkedIn with my posts 3 days a week, 3 or 4 days a week. I'm going to start putting more I guess you could say I'm going to start doing some LinkedIn lives and that
Yes.
type of thing, and some trainings mid-afternoon. Now I still work in the corporate world, so Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Life is business, and that's transportation, and I'm loyal in that respect. But there is that hour, noon to 1, that's all mine. So I mean, why not do a LinkedIn live at noon? A lot of
Yeah.
people, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe 1 o'clock for people on the East Coast, it may be 10 o'clock for people on the West Coast, that type of thing. But yeah, I'm gonna step up that game. I need to bring my training to a new level. I mean, I've been in my business for over 3 decades. I have a lot to bring to the table, not just to women in male dominated industries, but men in transportation. I could teach you pretty much everything operations about this business.
Right.
Um, so I'm just revamping everything. And now that I've gotten the personal stuff kind of settled, I mean, and I mean, it's still happening in the background and everything like that. I mean, an 80-year-old is an interesting feat whenever you're trying to take care of them. But you have to do what you have to do. It's family. And so,
Right.
but now that we've gotten that settled and we've gotten through, I guess you could say, our life being upheavaled, and I was like trying to find a new balance. We're finally found our new balance. So that's my next
Good.
steps is getting the school app built out. I will be, as soon as I mean, it's up and running. It just only has a few things on it. It's not a lot of training on there. It's just basically links to my podcast. I haven't actually gotten the trainings recorded yet. I'm in the process of doing that. But other than that, it's pretty much it. I mean, I'm available for coaching and inspiration. I still mentor, so that's good. I mean,
That is
and
good.
those are like I'm not gonna charge my mentees. I've been mentoring them for years, so I'm not gonna do that. That would just be kind of crappy. Hey, by the way, I've been mentoring you for 3 years. Now I'm gonna charge you $97 a month.
By the way,
Doesn't work that
can
way.
I get some back charges on? No,
Exactly.
no,
It's like, we got some back taxes here. No, it doesn't work that way. But no, I mean, going forward, I would like my coaching to be able to reach the globe, honestly, because I mean, there are women in transportation and there are women in male dominated industries that are not just in the United States, they're global. I mean, I
Right.
talk to
Right.
women down in Brazil and Panama and in areas like that that are inspired by me. And so why
Right.
not have them
I
in
can see
India
that.
and Asia? So
I can see that. I can see that. I was in Kenya back in November. I think I told you about that trip, and there were women in that they were just starting to get into it. So I mean, they can be inspired by, the ceiling is not here. Look at Kathleen; she's here, and she did it because she put in the work. She got there, and so you can do it too.
there's always a way to break through that glass ceiling.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, Dr. Calvin, thank you very much for joining us today. I do appreciate it. So, um, for all my audience, Dr. Calvin Lawrence, and you can find him on LinkedIn. I'm sure he would be happy to connect. And if you can't find him, find him through me. I mean, just hit my LinkedIn up and I will point you in the right direction. He is the author of The Happy Leader. And I can tell you that every single day that this man sends me a post, I smile. So just reach out. How can we find you?
How can you find me? You can find me on, or like you said, on LinkedIn. You can find me www.calvinlawrencespeaks.net. That's my website. And I guess, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well.
I will put all of his connection info on LinkedIn whenever this podcast gets posted on the LinkedIn site. But you can also find this podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. And thank you for joining us on SSO Coaching 76. And remember, see your strength, recognize your significance, and embrace your opportunity because it's always there. Have a great day.